You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Batuta Advocate on Desert Rock FM. Welcome back to the Batuta Advocate radio show for the first podcast of 2021, technically. I mean, we came out last week with Nat's What I Reckon, but that was, as you could probably tell at the time, something we had recorded months earlier when he was promoting his book, but that was in the can, and we're back from holidays now. Joined by Errol Parker, editor-at-large. How are you, Errol?
Good, mate, and believe it or not, this one is not going out live either, but you know, that's just the way that podcasting is these days. You know, I do feel that the format's been bastardized somewhat, that now that, you know, you can record podcasts and they don't go out live.
Live podcasts are high risk. We'll get there. We've done live shows, which, you know, are also high risk, but I just feel like, you know, we're putting stuff out on the internet and we've got to be careful about what we put out there because, you know, we've got a code of conduct, obviously, in Batuta, and we don't want to offend anyone.
Especially not Alan Jones.
No, you can't say anything nowadays. You've got to be careful with that. Anyway, I'm dribbling. 2021 marks new beginnings for a lot of people. In Australia, we kind of keep convincing ourselves we've beaten COVID-19. And then, of course, we have minor clusters and we have lockdowns. But 2020 was an interesting year where, you know, we had to come to terms with this new normal. And a lot of people had lost a lot. A lot of people lost a lot of last year. A lot of iconic companies, businesses, institutions collapsed because they couldn't handle this new brave world. But one institution that only went from strength to strength was today's guests, the Hello Sport podcast, Tom and Eddy. Thank you for joining us today, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us back.
Thank you very much. Kind words.
Kind words.
Big year. Big year.
Correct.
2020 was
No,
big.
not incorrect.
No, definitely correct. Are we bigger than ever? Absolutely. Is it sort of like the universe ever expanding? Is it speeding up the universe, Eddie, or slowing down?
Well, the expanse of the universe is speeding up much like us.
Much like us,
look,
yeah.
there's a lot of synergy there. I don't want to go into it too much, but
No.
there's a lot of synergy.
You guys are now at getting bailed up in the pub heights.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I was talking about this with my girlfriend the other day. Like, I get bailed up every now and then, fiance, but the person who gets bailed up the most is our lawyer to the stars, Isaac Carey. Like, I was going, where's he come from? You know what I mean? Like,
He's come from nowhere. So, more people know him than us.
For anyone who's not familiar with the universe of the Hello Sport, this is their lawyer, Isaac Catch Carey, who's somehow developed a public profile from being their lawyer, but also was that guy that caught the screamer, the one-dayer in...
He is.
Yeah.
He does have quite an
That bald head.
iconic look, though. Isaac Carey does, you know, as the lawyer to the stars of the podcasting realm. He was a boy, you know, he is from the New South Wales Central West. He did have quite a lock of curly brown hair, you know, quite a boyish charm about him. And now, you know, he's more or less looks like he's the lead singer of R.E.M. No,
I guess
quite a transformation.
The expression is the top cleared on
Yes.
Isaac Catch Carey.
And honestly, we get sent photos of people with Izzy all the time. And it's like, where are these people?
people ask him for illegal advice now. He's like,
Yeah,
I've been hit up 3 or 4 times. He's like, what are you fucking talking about? No.
So this is at the center of your podcast, and the institution you've created is these kind of people who I guess you guys refer to as the Punters and the Dribblers. Can you tell us a little bit about them? What they represent in the Australian psyche?
Actually, just before we jump into that, what makes a punter and what makes a dribbler?
Well, I was talking about this with
what's
someone
the
the other
difference?
day. Well, listen, all punters are dribblers, but not all dribblers are punters, if that makes sense. Because punters are also a bit more in the like sort of sports gambling world, but basically
A bit more considered with their analysis of a game, like for example.
But it's all, but none of it is based in any sort of place of qualified opinion or authority.
They're not analysts, but they pretend like they are. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
they're just a little.
If you
bit,
speak about anything with enough confidence, then you're going to seem like you know what you're talking
they
about.
might wear like they like wearing polo shirts,
much like yourself,
like
Eddie.
myself. You know what I mean?
But look, the punter and the dribbler, it is basically the everyman or woman in Australia, sport or not sport, but obviously that's just the pool we swim in, who, you know,
So
likes
they're
to...
borderline pundits. They like to talk with authority on anything you put in front of them.
Very one-eyed.
Yeah.
Like the dribbler is seriously one-eyed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's heard something once and then that's just what he
Unqualified
rolls with.
opinion, unwavering bias.
Exactly right.
The Dribblers heard a lot about the Swedish model of the pandemic. Like that's something a dribbler talks about.
Yeah.
They've
Okay,
heard
so
about
it's all about herd immunity. Open up. fuck texting, fuck a lot of it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the dribbler.
Because they heard something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
And this government already spends way too much on the old age and disability pensions. So
Yeah.
we should
Yeah,
really,
exactly. Quarantine the old.
taking the opportunity to perhaps do our shopping at Aldi for a couple of weeks and, lower our bottom line.
Yeah.
The punter speaks with a lot of authority, but has his own ideas, and the dribbler kind of runs off what
Borrows
he's
them.
heard, and he borrows these ideas
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
defends.
And
Yeah.
misquotes other bits of information like that he's
Yeah.
already regurgitating, but will also share his thoughts probably on Instagram stories and shit.
Look, is it a little muddy? Is the definition not exactly black and white?
Yeah.
Sure, but we like to swim in the grey.
I think everyone's essentially a dribbler, right?
Everyone's got something dribbly about them.
Yeah, for sure.
know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Look, that's it. I think we've cleared that up.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Obviously, having a podcast based around sport, that's the way it started, but it's kind of descended into kind of soap opera and rom-coms and all kinds of things that interest the P&D. What would you find is happening now? You kind of are friends with a lot of athletes who've come on the show. You've got a lot of friends of the show.
Shitloads.
But you still hold them to account, In the last few weeks, I imagine Mitchell Pearce probably wouldn't have enjoyed listening to your show in the last couple of weeks.
Look, I don't know whether Mitch has ever enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Potentially. Mitch, I wouldn't say a friend of the show, not because we don't hold him in any regard, but more just because Mitch, one of the great dead shits in rugby league,
Look,
would have to be said.
Mitch knows that he's fucked up from time to time. And
Well,
look, he didn't win us enough shields is probably the long and the short of it.
Yeah.
And look,
Yep.
we didn't hold back in that regard. Obviously, State of Origin means a great deal to Tom and I.
And you're both, that rare breed of Origin fans who, think that New South Wales is something to get around.
correct.
well, yeah.
It's
it's something
but, I think, Eddie, you hit on a good point there. If Mitch had 8 shields to his name,
Mate,
I would be brushing everything that he's ever done. under
I'd be
the
like,
carpet.
fucking go away. Like,
Yeah, leave him alone.
Leave,
Look at
leave
him.
Mitch alone. What's he done?
Get
You
off
know
his
what I mean?
case. Look at Shane Warne. He can do whatever he
Yeah,
wants.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's where you take it. But to your earlier point, we've got to hold the athletes accountable because otherwise the punter and the dribbler won't listen. You know what I mean? You got to tell it how it is.
Someone like Angus Crichton, good friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Friend of your show. How do you not cross over? How do you not become too familiar? But to advocate to actually do this a couple of years ago when all these fucking dribblers in Canberra, all the politicians thought that, we did a book launch down there and they all came out and every single one that was looking for a photo op came out. It was pre-Prime Minister ScoMo was there and fucking, who's that little Labor dribbler? Dastiari and all those blokes were looking for a
Sammy.
photo
Yeah.
op and all that shit. And then they all thought, they had us in their pocket. And then we learnt pretty quickly that we had to burn every bridge.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, because they just thought, and then it did get to a point where we'd get an email from a staffer being like, oi, that's a bit rough. We're like, fuck you, mate.
Yeah.
When did we ever say we were friends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys have now got to do that with the athletes, I guess.
Well, I just think it's more like, if you stick your dick in a glory hole, we're gonna bag you out about it.
Well, we're gonna
Yeah.
talk about glory holes
Yeah.
for 45 minutes. You know what I mean?
You could be our best mate, but if you've done that, then unfortunately, we are beholden to the punter and the dribbler to break it down with the same sort of meticulous analysis you'd see Joey Johns break down a sweeping backline play.
That's exactly right. So that's why the glory hole got 45 minutes on a recent podcast. But I think, we try to have a little bit of fun with it, whether or not the athletes...
went about as long as the video of the glory hole went for about 45 minutes as well.
Well, that was the abridged version, which I think we're all thankful was the only one passed around, because I don't know that anyone needs to see, what I can only assume was like an hour and a half of basically the comeback of the glory hole. But look, yeah, as he said, we're making fun of it though. Like, we're not sitting there going, this is a bloody disgrace. We're not NRL 360.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that big fucking bald-headed
There's a lot of them in
James
rugby league,
Hooper?
man.
You're not
Hooper.
getting outraged over nothing.
We're not blowing up.
Yeah.
We're not calling for investigations. We're actually probably the ones doing the investigating.
Yeah. Look, we run an eye over, a scenario and call it how it is.
Help us understand it as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Because the punter and the dribbler, they're looking for guidance a lot of the time.
Yeah.
They come to us to go, Jesus, how do you unpack this? And we go, well, this is how you unpack it, mate.
Yeah. This is what you need to be thinking when you're looking at this.
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Here's how to, run a professional eye over it.
But
Not
I
we're
think
not
as
athletes,
well,
but
we try and talk about it how we how Tom and I talk about it, but it's sort of like, I think it's a reflection of how most people see any scenario or situation when it comes to sports stars, right? Like, we talk about it how people at the pub talk about things, whereas James Hooper, like I feel sometimes they put it on a lot and they get offended because they think they need to get offended, and it's all a bit fucking fake to me, a bit 2D.
No, that fucking Hooper, he goes around and acts like he's never been at a kick on and tried
like
to root
fucking
a dog.
give it a rest, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Never
a lot of
put
them
the
don't
fucking
have a lot
rock hard-
of empathy for the rugby league player or the athlete in general. We try to provide a little bit of empathy. You look at someone like Mitch Pearce of, scandal fame. He, after a couple of scandals,
so
you go
many
like,
scandals.
bruh.
Yeah.
Like when he humped that dog, I think everyone was like, listen, I'm not saying I've done it, but I might have seen someone do it at a kick and I'd be like, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like he was actually trying to root a dog, right?
Yeah.
That was overreaction.
Yeah.
But he just kept doing shit and doing shit. Now you're like, listen, dude, I know the dog might have been an overreaction.
Where are we with Mitch? What, like, obviously there was the dog rooting. That might have been the first real
No,
one.
he got like, there was one where there was something in a nightclub with a chick.
Yeah.
There was
It's
the
all
dog.
piss.
There's a bus story that I won't go into.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
there's
the
a
bus
we
was
know
great.
the bus story,
Yeah,
the
the
Bucks bus,
Yeah,
or the wedding story.
wedding
Yeah.
bus story.
That didn't get out, although Weidler, I think, reported on it a little bit.
Yeah.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
He
It's
got
in the-
bashed by a family friend on a bus to a wedding or some shit.
Do your own
Yeah.
research into that one.
Deal.
but
Yeah, deal.
you just like, mate, you're 31.
Yeah.
I'm 31. At some point, you just got to stop being a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And you've had that many, like, imagine having to go, like, when does his press conference and he's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to change, I'm going to turn it around. You're like, yeah, but, like, you're not, though, are you? Or at least based off current history. Very reasonably, people can throw out sort of the mental health side of things. But you go, also, though, like, personal responsibility is also a thing, though.
Yeah,
mental health is absolutely a thing, but being an adult, like, because you've got depression or whatever you might have, doesn't mean you can just go and be a cunt.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
There's a couple ornaments to the game of rugby league that you guys speak about. Mitch Pearce probably isn't one of them. As you said, he didn't probably...
From an off-season standpoint, Mitch, certainly working his way into that. Like,
But even his scandals are just not good enough. Like, even his scandals are underwhelming.
Yeah.
They're disappointing,
well,
but they're not fucking...
He's always a mainstay without being maybe in sort of the award show contention.
Yeah, like I think in that sort of realm, it is going to be hard to get past, your Ryan Girdlers, your Julian O'Neills.
Look, he's not going to win a Logie.
No,
He's definitely not winning a Logie for off-season performance, but he's dependable.
Yeah.
You can set your watch to him in an off-season.
Like Hopewadi.
Now there's an ornament to the game. There's someone who, whether he's doing it on purpose or whether he's just got sort of a subconscious commitment to outlandish behaviour. The man is a content machine. He's anti-COVID. He's pro.
He's anti-establishment.
He's one of the great followers on Instagram, John Hopewadi. I'll say that.
He's a rebel without a clue.
Yes.
Can you tell us, speaking of the P's and D, the punters and dribblers, they weren't sicked onto Hopper. This is something that's developed organically among your fan base and your listenership. There is something happening right now with John Hopewadi's Instagram that may or may not involve your community.
Yeah, look, so certainly not by any means was this something that we called for, but I'm here for it, was one of them. Basically, Hopewadi's sharing a lot of anti-COVID, pro-Trump conspiracy rhetoric on his Instagram. First question I would ask John is, what's his obsession with American politics? But that's sort of like by the by.
Hang Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty passionate.
He's very passionate.
Very passionate.
But so, like, we've got a page on Instagram, the Punters and Dribblers, and it's just sort of where, like, we don't do too much in there. It's just the sort of the P's and D's sharing all their shit.
Yeah.
And one of them was just like, I'm sending Hopewadi fake COVID information.
But set him up as well. Like, listen, I've got some information you might be interested in. I'll come back here at 7 p.m. and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're trying to silence me. I can't share it on my own Instagram because they're going to take it down. So I can only send it here. And he sent him something like...
And Hopper sent back 100.
Yeah, 100. Thanks, brah. But then, and so, like, listen, I don't think, like, the guy I think ended up feeling bad as well because he sent Hopper all this fucking bullshit information about mail-in ballots going to, like, the
military
troops,
one was the big
troops in the Middle East, and
The
it's
one
like they got
Persian
2
Gulf.
million ballots that never came back. There's only 30,000 troops in fucking. But then Hopper, like, sent him, like, a Merry Christmas message and shit, and was like, hope your family's well. And he's like, I can't help but feel a bit bad about sending Hopper fake messages.
Yeah, I mean, it's no more as fake as the shit he would share anyway. But yeah. I mean, you've got a lot to work with in rugby league, particularly cricket as well. Is starting to get. We're starting to see after quite a Women's Day friendly era of cricket. I guess over the last 5 to 10 years, starting to see a few more characters popping up now.
Yeah, except that then they get beaten down by Warney and
There's
and
always
Simons.
been a little bit of scandal, like when Gary sort of got a new woman. That was
The thing with with cricket,
front page
there
material.
is the Wags, the Wag 11,
Kylie Clark.
The Wags in cricket get more coverage than any Wags in any sport in the country.
Well, if you're married or a partner to the Australian cricket captain, then that's the highest WAG position in the land.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with that comes a lot of responsibility.
Correct. And Bonnie Payne does it with aplomb. Shout out to her.
Shout out to Bonnie.
But look, cricket scandals not as glory hole-esque as your rugby league, right? You're never going to see that, I don't think.
Well, I just think, going back to a metric that you guys came up with a few seasons ago is like, it is on the scale of flashiness. The flashier the WAG, the more trouble you have.
Yes.
Has the standard of flash in the Australian cricket team WAG gone a bit less flashy?
I think it certainly has gone less flashy in the sense that they all seem to be like beautiful, lovely, decent women as opposed to like, Daily Mail types.
Yeah.
No,
So the flashier the WAG, more trouble.
no Rabbitoh
Yeah.
Wags in the cricket team.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Moving on. But what is happening now at the Australian cricket side? Who would you say is impressing you personality-wise as the young fellas?
Well, we were talking about this the other day. Tim Payne is getting a lot of shit at the moment, and we can probably touch on that. But Tim Payne sort of walked into the side under a cloud of doubt. Obviously, there was the whole cheating scandal, which we went on over, what was a couple of years ago now. Australia didn't know where it was going, a bit directionless. Justin Langer comes in, Tim Payne, who everyone knew could keep, but didn't fucking know anything about. Like, geez, that kid looks like he's 8 years old, you know what I mean? No one knew that he was
Almost
an
40.
alpha, which he's turned out to be.
A leader of men. It was an arranged marriage. It was like, I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
I'm not about to call you my captain.
But in the last couple of years, I've learnt to love him. Like, if anyone saw the
Yeah.
Test documentary on Amazon Prime, I think it's now on... I think you can watch it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's by the way. You're just like, this bloke is a fucking leader of men. Like, I'm all about him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How he treats, how he talks to the other players, how he talks to the media. His sledging at times has been sick to watch.
But then, and this is what's wonderful about, I think it's wonderful about cricket in general, right? It's just how seriously everyone takes it, and not only like the sort of the 4-hour breakdowns in between or post-game analysis of like what happens to the captaincy when Tim goes, but like he has one bad test where he loses his cool in what was one of the fucking great draws from India. Like, as if you're not going to lose your cool when you got the game in the bag, and then India just come out and hardly like fight their way to a draw, and he loses his cool, talks a bit of shit, and everyone's like, fucking disgrace.
He talked a little bit of shit.
He called him a dickhead.
And he probably is.
Yeah, he's probably speaking from some level of experience.
Look, whose side you taking? I'm taking my captain's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But there's one thing about that I didn't really like is when he said, wait until we get you up into Brisbane.
Yeah.
Because at that moment, he'd basically conceded the fact that we were going to have a draw.
Yeah.
Which I don't like.
No, I'm with you there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If he was giving him a bit of lip, Tim, just throw the ball back to Pat, tell him to come around the wicket and just try and hit them. Try, like in the face, ribs,
Hurt them.
everything.
Yeah, just injure him.
Just say, look, I've sincerely had enough of you being here and you talking to me, so I'm going to go and stand about 30 metres that way. I'm going to put on my strike bowlers and I'm going to tell them to come around the wicket at you.
There you go.
And just bounce you all
And
day
just
long.
bounce
Yeah.
you. Bounce you out of the game.
And,
Look, I agree with that.
Michael Clark didn't really know how to swear, but he did know how to do exactly what you're saying, Errol, which was when he said, get ready for a broken fucking arm.
That is replayed time and time and time
Yeah.
and time again. People fucking love
Didn't
that
deliver
shit.
it well. It should be get ready for a fucking broken arm. Get
Look,
ready
I'm
for
not
a
saying
broken fucking
I'm not saying he
arm.
nailed the
That's a good
delivery,
point.
but the point was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
people loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
So
these are
everyone
all
always-
things, though, I think that Steve Smith can't do. I don't...
Steve's not.
He,
up to it.
No, he is a great batsman. He should be bowling more.
Great
and
singer.
he should be
Great singer.
Yeah, he's not bold.
standing at
all.
gully and just being there as like a bouncing board for the captain.
I don't know who the hell comes into it.
Well, they were talking about that the other day on ABC Grandstand, and it was a very serious topic, and I loved how serious it was. They're like, who comes in after Tim? And they're talking about Steve, and is Steve the right fit, and would Steve even want to do it? And they're just going into all this sort of detail. But my opinion is simply that if you turn your eye on the behaviour going on in South Africa, like if you don't even address it, which apparently he didn't, and again, this is all alleged, if you're that sort of captain, I just don't think that you're up to it, personally.
No.
And I think that he's better off just focusing on scoring mountains of runs. You know what I mean? Take that pressure away from him and go out there and just hit 200s, 300s. Average 100 every series. Like,
The problem, though,
I'm
is that
happy
Tim
with that.
Payne's about 40, and so when he goes, there's not exactly someone...
do you think
unless
that
you listen
Smudge
to
is the
Shane
leader of
Warne,
men?
Unless you listen to Warney, who says Travis Head's the fucking next captain of Australia, despite scoring runs for the country. I don't know who else goes in. Anyway, look, I feel like we can get all ABC Grandstand and break it down.
Yeah.
No, he's not a leader of men, but he might have to be a stopgap. Like, get him back in there just till we see someone like Marnus.
Can't bring him back. You can't do that.
I don't
You
know.
can't bring him back for a little bit. It'd have to be.
Well, no, he's either
Well,
back or
yeah.
he's not.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not like,
Yeah.
you're back as a stopgap.
Yeah.
Well, no, but you wouldn't call it a stopgap. But you kind of have to, right? Until you can bring someone through.
Yeah.
Or they could go the Penrith Panthers model where they have 5 captains.
Well, I
That
don't
would
think. But
upset
see,
the apple cart.
you just can't have a person who is a bowler as your test captain because
You don't reckon?
they break down too much. I mean, who was the last fastish bowler that you think has a test captain cap?
I wouldn't even have a clue.
It's Shane Watson. Okay, he captained for 1 test.
And he's not even really. He's an all-rounder.
He's an all-rounder. Before
Good
that,
infantry boy.
I mean, in terms of bowling, I mean,
No. But other characters in the game, I mean, like there's
Bob
Marnus
Simpson?
is a weird little character coming through, right? Like he's quirky, strange. He's not like a brash or like he's not like attitude character. He's more like, oh, this guy's weird as
Yeah.
shit.
I
He's been
don't
spending a lot of time with Smudge. Like those leaves.
yeah, I
the
don't know
exasperated
enough about
He's
Marnus.
surely learnt them off Smudge.
I just don't know him well enough.
No, he's just a strange dude. But I don't mind that.
Cricketers
are weird.
We need to,
He's like
we need
a
to
test
dispel
Michael
this myth
Bevan.
now. Mate, not
know?
since
Yeah.
fucking Tomo and Lily has there been like a cricketer that we can relate to like a footballer. There
Cricketers
hasn't been.
cricketers
Not
aren't cool.
Not since the 70s. They are all... Even Warney, and we've mythologized Warney to the very end, is one of the weirdest men in Australian
But
public life.
Warney, and
I think
I think everyone will admit it's getting weirder and weirder. Like the further he
Yeah.
gets away from his illustrious career,
Yeah.
you know, the shine comes off, or
well,
Yeah.
the shine
lights
of like
dim or
this
something,
is
you
the
know.
Lothario who just chonged birds and
took
Yeah.
test wickets.
took test wickets. You're like, oh no, this guy's actually he's a strange character and
He's good at 2 things,
Yeah.
poker and cricket.
yeah, and like how worried he is about his
shagging.
hair,
And shagging.
and he wears the Peaky Blinders hat and pretends like it's just because he loves the show, and it's like, bro, you know, no one believes that though, right? Like
Yeah.
you know that.
I reckon if I went to a kick on at Warney's house after a big day, I reckon I'd be there for half an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
Mate, he's got a mural in his house that
Yeah.
he's trying to sell and
I
can't.
would
He's
go
got
and
like
look at all at
of a
all the
naked
shit.
Angelina Jolie. He's got a
like-
nightclub. He's got
Everyone knows
like,
his...
Here's
Smoke
here's a
machine.
stump from the '99 World Cup final, mate. Fucking hold it. I'm like, this is great, Warney, but I've got to go.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I've got to get out of here,
Yeah.
bro. Sorry,
But
man.
they're all weirdos. I mean, Darren Lehman was, I guess, a bit of a kind of yobbo, and the last true kind of
Although
yobbo.
JL feels...
He was from Adelaide.
Well, JL's does Zendokai, which is not a martial art that anyone understands, so that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
That is a weird thing.
but
Punter?
he could kick you in the head though.
Oh, you could kick my head clean off.
Like Punter's from Tassie, but... You know.
Yeah.
Who was telling us the other day? Punter apparently
Who?
worth 50 million.
Yeah, who?
Yeah, he isn't.
Who was that?
I can't remember.
Some bloke
Someone on our
called in.
podcast.
Yeah.
He
called
loves
in.
cash, mate. He
Yeah,
loves
but,
it.
I mean, who doesn't? But
Loves
like
it.
50 million.
No, but mate,
I've heard that
Clark
too.
could be the same. Obviously, Clark makes more sense because he was IPL era, so he could have cashed in on like 2 seasons with the Rajasthan fucking.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
but
even still, that's
50
that's big
million
money.
is-
Clark could be 80.
No.
Yeah.
No way. No way. Nah, 10.
His misses, yeah, but not Clark.
Nah, Pup, what's Pup? 10?
Fuck, I would. If he's
up.
lucky.
Tell you
I'd be
what,
shocked.
Pup's still waxing his body within an inch of its life post-career.
I think he'd be a laser guy.
Oh, you reckon he's a
Yeah, I
lazy
reckon
man?
he's a
Yeah, he
lazy
doesn't
guy.
have time to wax.
No.
Or maybe the Veet Moose.
No, look, if he's a Veet Moose guy, I'm not here. He's a laser guy.
I overestimated there. Pup
Yeah.
is 22 M's.
That's still
really good.
still a lot of M's.
What's Ricky? What's Google say Ricky is?
Ricky's about 50, but he's got a lot of
50 to 90 , they reckon.
He's a good investor.
doing? Yeah, well, he'd have to.
Clearly, he is.
A fantastic
They're weirdos.
He's also
business.
immortalised in bronze.
Sportsmen aren't
so,
meant to be worth money in retirement. They're meant
Not
to,
in Australia, anyway.
No, they're meant to
He's
go
supposed to have
broke.
blown it on the way up.
Yeah. Spend it on toys.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's the sort of what I would have expected for Pup.
Toys and extracurriculars.
Yeah.
A bit of punning.
Pup's also
Buying
employed a
$1 million cars.
heavy gym regimen post career. He's now like jacked. I'm not inferring any sort of steroid, but he's pretty swole for a man that was just sort of like a, so sort of athlete physically.
So it says here that Ricky Ponting's his first big venture since retiring fucking ages ago is Ponting Wines.
That's his.
That's not
First
that can't
big
be
one.
worth.
That's his first.
But is that
big
his own
venture.
one where he's sort
I'd
of
say
like-
that that's
He's
the first
obviously
time he's
kept
having a
things-
pun on himself.
I
but-
think he's kept things quiet then.
Yeah,
He's selling that to Indians.
I think he's probably just been, adhering
Billion
to,
Indians buying Ponting wines.
the Warren Buffett school of investing, where you live a pretty humble lifestyle, but you just continually reinvest most of what you make, and then it snowballs to the point where you're like Warren and you're worth a couple of strong bees.
Strong bees. Well,
strong
Punter's
bees.
probably spent most of his money on his hair because that's come
Punter,
back.
yeah.
Well, I bet probably evidence the fact that he's made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because his hair's doing pretty well.
Well, it looks as good as it's ever looked.
Financial security is key
Good for the hair.
to being follically gifted.
Yep.
I tell you who is
Unless you're
follically gifted.
Steve Jobs,
Young
then
Will Pekowski, the
Valet,
Bulgarian
yeah.
Bulldog.
Valet.
He's got an incredible head of hair.
And is he
certainly
he
wasn't
looks
And a
like
great
in the
vibe.
pancreas department.
Sorry, we're still on a Steve Jobs.
I think got the pancreas cancer joke. But yes, the Balkan Bulldog.
Will Pekowski, the Balkan Bulldog, he is follically gifted, yes.
Yes,
And
And a private school boy, which is pretty rare.
Is he
that is
really?
fucking
Yeah.
rare. I mean,
Because there's a
probably
lot of,
not
like-
since Ed Cowan.
But there's a
really.
lot of
That's
rhetoric
right.
in cricket about like it being sort of the rich man's game and the upper class game and all that. But it's
Same
like
as golf in Australia.
It's
It's all
actually
bullshit.
it's
Yeah.
actually
No,
predominantly-
God, no.
like the private school cricketers are few and far between.
But you see, in New South Wales, they have this thing which a lot of people forget about. Obviously, the private schools have these hardcore programs where kids will go through hydroponic chambers and whatever, and they'll come out and end up playing with a rabbit.
Hydroponic chambers.
Yeah, hydroponic chambers. They grow them. But in New South Wales, what a lot of people forget, and it's not the case in Queensland, is they have these sports high schools.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Matraville, I mean,
Endeavour.
Like a lot of these kids came out of these schools where it is basically a conveyor belt.
Dude, just to jump onto like it's a different sport, but I don't know what the school was in Queensland, but one team I'm pretty sure had Payne Haas, David Fafita, and Tino Fa'asuama'awi in the same fucking side.
It would have been
Like-
Miami High or
Yeah.
Kibra Park. Gold
Might have been
Coast.
Kibra Park.
Yeah,
Kibra,
yeah.
yeah.
Where you're like, holy shit,
Yeah.
that would have been the most intimidating experience for anyone else. But you're like, these schools are actually where the Australia's athletes come
and
from.
league, like the schoolboy league in the public school system in Queensland's red hot. The Ipswich
Yeah.
State High Rugby League program would probably be one of the best in Queensland behind Red Hill.
It's like Australia's Friday Night Lights. Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard it ruined junior rugby league a little bit in New South Wales, the sports high school, because no one wanted to play. Because they're like, we don't want to play fucking Matchable bloody high today and just get absolutely pounded.
There
into
was
the
nothing
earth.
more intimidating as a young rugby or like a young footy player, and you come up against some absolute monster, and you're like, oh well, I'm going to lose here. Man, children.
You'd have one go and
galore.
he'd bump you off, and
Yeah,
you go,
and
right,
you go, well,
that's
what
going
the
to be
fuck?
it.
This guy's going to score 6
8
fucking
minutes.
tries.
Yeah.
I'd love to, and we were saying this in the podcast, love to do like a follow-up expose on the man-child who was like an 8-try game operator in
Where
sort
is
of
he now?
13, 14. Where is he now? What's
And
he doing?
He was in the Victorian comp, that kid. Are we talking about the same?
No, I'm just saying in
Talking
general.
generally
In
speaking.
general, the I remember one man child that was in like he was the biggest dude in our year at school. Animal, bit of a bully, but that's not important. And then we went back for our sort of year 12 reunion, and it was like he's the smallest guy there, and you're like, oh shit, this is
Yeah.
the follow up to the man child.
Yeah.
Some man-child stay that way, though. Some stay king of the jungle.
Oh yeah,
It's particularly those young Islander boys. Like when
They certainly maintain their
they
man-child.
maintain Bam Bam Tuivasa is perfect. We've seen the photos of him as a young bloke just ruining a lovely weekend for a couple little Parlungi white boys, fucking just getting folded out there in Mount Druitt, and then he stays big. You know
Yes.
what I mean? But for the for the run of the mill man child that we remember, it was
White
just
boy
the guy. It
man-child
was the guy
usually.
that went through puberty first.
Yes,
that was
correct.
the man
Yeah.
child. Of course, Australia's demographics have changed, and now we have a bit more size in the junior ranks.
Oh, yeah.
So if we could go back to Pekovsky for a second
Of
here.
course. I'm not sure how we got there.
Obviously won the Alan Border medal last year, but
The Alan Border medal?
yeah.
Isn't the Alan Border medal, or is
Yeah.
it called the
Oh,
Australian
sorry, no.
Cricket
No,
No,
change it.
he won the Bradman Young
Yeah.
Cricketer of the
Yes.
year at the AB. Sorry,
The AB
sorry
still
about that.
goes to the winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think Alan Border would think of him? He is injured at the moment. But it is a bit of a dubious injury. And when you become endowed with the baggy green, it is an office of sport that transcends a lot of injuries. Where you've got players for a long time they've been playing with injuries that have otherwise kept them out of the game. But do you think that Alan Border would be disappointed in Will?
I mean, look, I think Alan Border would be disappointed in probably most players of the modern era, right? Like,
Too many emotions.
well, too many emotions, not enough
Don't
sort
drink
of
enough
ticker,
piss,
don't
not
drink enough
enough-
piss, not enough facial hair.
Yeah.
He'd
yeah.
probably like Pekovsky's hair, but I think also it's probably taken out of the players' hands a little bit these days with high performance managers and shit where they're just like, nah, you got your shoulders injured, you're not playing.
They
Whereas,
wrap the young blokes up as well. And the young blokes seem to break down a lot, which you sort of notice when you get older.
Yeah.
Like all the young, like Pat Cummins used to break down every other day. And now when you're a bit of age, bit of like...
you grow into your body.
He grows into his body, you harden a little bit,
Yeah.
and now he's bowling his ass off every game. So
Yeah.
hopefully with Will, it's a little bit of, bit young, bit fragile, and he'll become
A man.
a man.
But
with plenty of AB about him.
Is that a result?
Because we
of
need
being
someone like
athletes?
him in the setup, I reckon.
Is that a result of being professional athletes? Because I don't know what year it would have been or what era it would have been when cricketers were able to just become cricketers for a living, but most of them were farm strong. 22-year-old blokes
Yeah.
who would work.
Lifting
Yeah.
bales.
Yeah, they'd be.
Look, not to insert myself into this sort of conversation, but I play cricket every weekend and I'm injured just sort of as a feature of being 31 and having a bad back and shin splints. And I
morbid.
just managed to get out there and do the damn thing, I just go, fuck it. Maybe I am on strict bed rest for the following week
Yeah.
after hitting a brave 50 in the last man standing competition. But I'm ready for the next week. You know?
Yeah, I mean that's what the Australian cricketers need to learn. They need to take a little bit of Div 6,
7
Div 7, last man standing
approach
to it.
Yeah. Just
It's probably a happy medium that needs to be reached. You're
Yeah.
right. Like at the moment, it's gone too far the other way. Like, you got a niggle, rest it.
Yeah.
Like, mate, there's one more test in the series. Let's be fair dinkum. We're
let's
gonna win
needle
it.
you up.
Yeah,
Needle him up.
Yeah.
This is game 3.
Yeah.
Stick and
essentially.
tape. Yeah, sticks and tape. Just
It's 1-1, mate.
It's 1-1. We need to win this thing.
Now
Now we got Travis Head
Yeah.
in there, who look I'm cool with, but like
I'd be needling up.
yeah.
I'd be needling up. And it sets a good example. Listen, fucking sooking won't be tolerated. Get in there and rip.
Ignore the injury.
just play till your body breaks down, you fucking cowards.
Induce long-term injury, you soft cunt. What are you doing? Get the series on the line.
Yeah,
So
you can
Tom-
sleep when you're retired.
Having listened to this Hello Sport podcast of yours a few times, tell me more about this last man stands competition, because from what I'm led to believe, you have to retire at 50. They force you to retire at 50, but your average in the competition since you've started is 60.8. How does
Look,
that
I
work?
appreciate you bringing that up, and that was purely unprompted. I must point that out. Last man standing, a 2020
It's in my
competition. I do average 60. I appreciate you bringing it up, but I actually last season averaged 150. So that's just
How the hell does that work?
because if you don't get out, then you score. Like, so if I don't get out 2 weeks in a row, I've basically hit 100.
Yep.
You know,
Right.
and I rarely get out.
And the next highest one in the team is a gentleman named Will, who's got an average of 23.
Yeah, look, I
So
mean,
is it fair to say that you're carrying this team at the moment?
look, I don't like to use those terms, Errol. Sorry, but yes, technically that is the only way you could I mean, like, you know, numbers speak for
They're all
themselves, don't
passengers.
they?
Right,
with
okay.
basically.
Numbers speak for themselves, but I'm a team man. Some have sort of theorised whether there's like an element of, has Bradman come down and sort of taken over my body? And I'm not sure.
Well, looking at those numbers, you know,
It's hard to argue, but again, like, I'm not a
If
scientist.
Bradman averaged 60 in Div 7, we'd all be pretty fucking worried, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, you average what you're allowed to average. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What,
wait.
What nature?
What would have Don Bradman been if he wasn't the greatest cricketer of all time?
As in, like, in life.
Yeah, I reckon he would be a creepy priest.
Well, it's like that Bill Burr. It's like that Bill Burr gag where it's
creepy
like
priest, possibly.
Bill Burr had the joke where it was like, we shouldn't, like, let's not be too harsh on Lance Armstrong, you know? And it's the same with Bradman, I guess. He was like, if we didn't have this man on a bike, he was such a narcissist, he was such a psycho. If Lance Armstrong wasn't on a bike, keep him on a bike because he would be polluting the oceans with poison and barrels of. He'd be one of, like, he'd be a corporate villain, you know? He'd be like, he'd be Lance Armstrong, and I imagine Bradman would be the same if we didn't put a bat in his hand. Would have been like the bad guys in Captain Planet, like
Yes, exactly.
absolute
Captain Pollution.
villains.
Captain Pollution was the bad guy in Captain Planet, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, that feels right.
Yeah. No, that's that's true. So look, I mean, maybe
And that's
we're
you.
all, and that's me basically.
You
yeah,
didn't
exactly.
ever want to be a role model.
Dude, I didn't exactly. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just here to score runs for my Div 7 side, carry us to an unlikely premiership. We don't win very often, so we'll see.
Right.
Anyway, shout out to
Yeah.
shout out to
So-
Seb.
Well, you know, you do have a win rate of 19.35%.
Jeez, that's
creeping up.
So basically, you could say that your cricket team is basically the Bangladesh of this competition.
Yes, correct. And
Yeah.
so I guess, I mean, you know, but improving.
What an honour.
Can and will knock off the big boys once in a while.
Yeah, you pull off a historic
but
win.
usually content to, you know, getting flogged by New Zealand.
Every Sunday.
We're just happy to be there, you know. It's not about the wins, and to quote some good friends of ours, the great cricketer, a good score in a losing side is far better than a good score in a winning side, right? Because
Yeah.
you walk out of there going, well, I've done my job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for those listening at home at the 40-minute mark, this is officially dribble.
You want to know what dribble is?
Yeah.
This is it. I felt like it might come to the fore during the space of time.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
Glory
has.
Hole was mentioned pretty early in the
Well,
podcast,
I just
and
was,
I've just
you know-
dropped it in like every sort of 10 minutes. I just bring it back to that.
Yeah.
That was a sensational, I mean, just to finish on the glory hole again, that was a sensational rugby league scandal because it was so very much what we were looking at. You know what I mean? There was nothing about that wasn't what we were looking at. There was no hidden
Ambiguity
angles.
there.
We were looking at it. This was based,
Yeah.
concentrated rugby league. And
It was pure.
it's pure, and we're just like, it's happening. This is what's happened. This is
exactly
no
what it
one's
is.
really.
And like, there's no. You could have had nothing else happen in the entire off season, and that one glory hole scene sort of has.
Nice production on that pornography, by the way. Like,
Well,
they
look,
must
I
have
mean,
a lighting crew and shit.
yeah.
Look,
I, mean,
I think there was a small crew.
There was a skeleton
There
crew.
was a
of-
skeleton crew, I think. And look, Kurt's gone the big lift for the off season. I think that we've theorised that's probably why it's a little bit quieter. Look, we've still got a month and a half, got another 6 weeks I think till kick off. So there's time. There's plenty of time.
After the Indigenous All-Stars match, we will get the boys back in here and we'll do that
Yep.
annual podcast we do where we rattle off the scandals.
scandals, we'll break
We've
them
held
down.
back today, but, you know, we'll find them. If we really dig around,
Oh, mate, there's a few there.
Don't you worry. There's plenty out there.
There's still some there.
You could fill an hour
yeah.
comfortably.
Okay, well, we've managed to fill an hour with dribble, and it's great to have you boys back on. We'll do it again in a month when rugby league season kicks off, and the soap opera that is begins. Cricket's been great, but I think we're ready for Boyd Cordner to get knocked out one more time and then retire, and there's a lot to come this year, so it's all going to be
Spoken like a true Queenslander.
Yeah, look, there's a
bring back Dane Cordner.
Watch out, Saifidi, brother. Yeah, look, thank you very much for having us. It's always a pleasure
Cheers,
to come
boys.
in here and shoot the shit. Good luck to whoever's editing this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the young fella outside. He'll be right.
He'll be right.
Good.
Bye bye.